Ahoy there, Lanny Pator here, and if you haven't been keeping up with TFS at the table, well, now's as good a time as any to start as we are rocketing towards the climax of our first chapter. And you know what? At the end of tonight's stream, we're going to be hosting a D&D Q&A live on our Discord where we'll be reading off questions you guys have and answering them live at the end of the stream. So please enjoy the recaps and join us tonight for TFS at the table, 5 o'clock Central Time, on twitch.tv/stream4star.
Seeking shelter from the swarmy sturges, our heroes ducked into an old mining outpost known as Yelden Cave. Exploring the area, they came upon some bottles which contained red wine and living slime. They also discovered 2 mimics, one unhelpful chest Ezra dubbed Trunky, and the other a scabbard by the name of Kevin, whom Wake decided to adopt. Deeper in the cave, our heroes came upon a haul of slime-covered wine casks. But when Wake popped one open, they made a much graver discovery: vile abyssal tumors. Whoever was behind the monsters in the waters surrounding Jahal Cove had been using Yelden Cave as a laboratory. It had to be shut down. Following the slime, our heroes came upon a giant bubbling ooze with a tumor-covered rat skull at its core. Anslow's target, the mighty Manma, had been corrupted by the abyssal energies. As the battle began, the defiled Manma sucked Anslow and Ezra into its body. With a mighty struggle, Anslow clawed his way to freedom before being digested. But Ezra needed a bit of help from Wake. The harrowing conflict left Ezra and Anslow battling for consciousness, but with a mighty blaze, the Manma was felled, leaving our party with a brief moment to rest. While Onslow and Ezra tended to their wounds, Wake explored the remainder of Yelden Cave, coming across 2 more mimics: Roy, a flesh-eating trunk, and Lancy, a key-making ring. The following morning, our crew left the cave and began their travels to the designated meeting point. Upon meeting up with Team 2, they were surprised to discover they had a prisoner, a snake woman named Ziaka. As a gesture of goodwill, Wake gave her an amulet which was stolen from her tribe, and she agreed to cooperate. There was little time for pleasantries, however, as their target was only meters away, a naval camp filled with soldiers. Our heroes knew that they would find the information they were looking for inside. Ezra, clad in a naval disguise, burst into camp, providing a distraction as Wake, Scrung, and Risf slipped in through the shadows. Wake overheard intel on the naval contingent's leader, Admiral Lockwood, as Scrung stumbled upon a bit of treasure. Looting what they could, Wake, Risf, and Scrung snuck back into the woods, leaving behind an explosive surprise. The party fled the scene, split their treasures, and made ready for their report to Captain Meade. In order to fulfill their promise to Ziaka, Ezra, Wake, and Eloy parted ways with Onslow and Pliskin to travel with Red, Ziaka, and Scrung to the desecrated temple. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by a man donning a mascot costume and were beckoned into the fine day boardwalk to take part in and enjoy its games and revelry. Eloy purchased himself some bagpipes to better expand his repertoire, and Ezra enjoyed the many animals on display. They were soon greeted by the man in charge, Mr. Faraday, who gave our heroes a quick verbal tour of the park, before offering them a chance to face off against their champion in the arena. Believing the champion could possibly provide more information on the abyssal threat, Wake accepted the challenge. As he stepped into the pit, he was greeted by a rather sizable tiefling girl, the demon of the arena, Nedra. With a kind hello, followed by a mighty roar, Nedra charged at Wake and the intense battle began. Were it down to pure strength and ferocity, Nedra surely would have prevailed. However, through discipline, agility, and a little luck, Wake managed to take the champion off her feet. After the crowd in the arena dispersed and their wounds were tended to, Wake met up with the others for an audience with Mr. Faraday and Nedra in the champion's quarters. Inside, they learned of a monster prowling the sealed-off underbelly of the temple, a monster created by their culprit, the mysterious Victor. Our heroes ventured deep into the temple on high alert. Upon arriving at the bottom, they discovered a room made entirely of gold, with a statue of the Yanti's god, the collective one, in the center. Along the way, they came across a gang of Faraday's men, who commented that Scrung bore a striking resemblance to the Goblin King. Soon they came face to face with their target, an undead snake man who skulked out of the shadows. Thanks to Ziaka's communication with the creature, it became clear it was no threat. What would be a threat, however, was the object that had been removed from the room, a jewel known as the Collective One's heart, said to keep the island afloat. The crew went to report to Faraday. However, the conversation swiftly turned sour as Wake learned that Nedra had been held as a slave by the Fine Day Boardwalk Company. Through some aggressive negotiations, the team left with their new tiefling companion in tow. Back in town, they reported their findings to Mary Pibbs, who sent them to meet with the town's necromancer, Mr. Rattles. They met the Lich in his shop, and using his otherworldly magics, he produced an image of the man who attacked Nedra in the temple and who defiled Yelden Cave. The man behind the abyssal threat, Victor. They also learned of his abductions in the town, and that they may be tied to an ancient hidden nest of mind flayers located on the island. Encountering their friend Timothy on the way out, they came upon another disturbing revelation. Upon his arm was the same scar as Nedra's. It would seem Timothy was Victor's next target for his vile experiments. Atop the flappy stingray, Wake kept vigil over the town as he waited for any sign of Victor. Suddenly, out of the darkness of the night, rolled a carriage. It came to a stop, and from within emerged Captain Meade and Harris Pibbs, followed by 3 cloaked figures. Wake followed them into the tavern where everyone else was waiting. Meade introduced his guests as Captain Avelo Ishtali and her cohorts Arahati and Troy Hoch of the Navy. It seemed they too had a vested interest in tracking down this Victor, who had turned traitor and killed Avelo's brother some time ago. They agreed to accompany our heroes on an expedition to the South Island, where they learned Victor was hiding, and to overlook the pirate activity on the island, in exchange for one thing. Captain Meade and his crew had to leave Jahal Cove. Given little say in the matter, Ezra, Wake, and Eloy set about selecting 3 other members to join the expedition. Ziaka made an obvious choice, having come from the southern island herself, and Scrung reluctantly agreed to come along as well. The third volunteer came as a surprise, however, as a familiar dwarf made his formal introductions. Golfer the Gambler had waited in the wings for another chance to get acquainted, and boasted that he'd been to the southern island many times, bargaining his way into the expedition. The next morning, the party gathered at the docks. Most boarded their rowboats as Wake plunged into the water for a long-awaited swim in his briny home. Taking on his true form, he was easily able to keep up with the rowboats. However, Wake was not alone in the water, as a giant abyssal floaterfish plucked Ezra from the boat, pulling him to the depths. Ezra hurriedly cut himself free as Wake grabbed him and pulled him back to the surface. The party made a mad dash toward the southern island as the massive marine monster pursued them, losing both of their boats to the beast and almost losing the heavily armored hulks to the seas. The party ultimately evaded their hunter and found themselves on the shores of the southern isle. But celebrations were short as Scrung came across an enemy to his kind, a red cap carrying the body of a goblin soldier. The feral creature was dispatched with one well-placed shot from Ezra's crossbow, but it left the question: what else awaited them on this island?